2 Kings chapter 18. Hezekiah son of Ahaz began to reign in Judah in the 3rd year of Hoshea son of Elah king of Israel. He was 25 years old then, and his reign in Jerusalem lasted for 49 years. His mother was Abijah, daughter of Zechariah. He did what was right in the eyes of Yahweh, like David his ancestor. He did away with the sanctuaries on the hills, demolished the standing stones, and cut down the sacred pillars. He also destroyed the bronze serpent that Moses had fashioned in the desert, for until that time the Israelites were offering sacrifices to it and called it Nehushtan. He trusted in Yahweh more than any of the kings of Judah who preceded or succeeded him, and he never departed from Yahweh. He kept the commandments Yahweh had given through Moses. For that reason, Yahweh was with him. He succeeded in all his undertakings. He rebelled against the king of Assyria and was no longer subject to him. He imposed his authority on the Philistines as far as Gaza and seized their land from the watchtowers to the fortified cities. In the 4th year of Hezekiah's reign, which was the 7th year of Hoshea, son of Elah, king of Israel, Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came against Samaria and besieged it. At the end of 3 years, he conquered it. In the 6th year of Hezekiah, which was the 9th year of Hoshea, king of Israel, Samaria was conquered. The king of Assyria deported the Israelites to Assyria and settled them in Hala, on the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. This happened to them because they did not listen to the voice of Yahweh their God and had broken his covenant. They did not listen to nor put into practice what Moses, the servant of Yahweh, had commanded them. In the 14th year of Hezekiah's reign, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up and invaded Judah. He laid siege to all the fortified cities and seized all of them. Hezekiah, king of Judah, sent a message to Sennacherib, who was in Lachish. I have acted badly. Stop your attack, and I will do whatever you demand of me. The king of Assyria demanded that Hezekiah give a contribution of 300 talents of silver and 30 of gold. Hezekiah then handed over to him all the money that was found in the house of Yahweh and in the treasuries of the royal palace. It was at that time that Hezekiah ordered that the gold sheets with which he himself had adorned the doorposts be stripped from the gates of the house of Yahweh and given to the king of Assyria. From Lachish, the king of Assyria sent his field commander with a large army to King Hezekiah in Jerusalem. They halted at the channel of the upper pool on the highway to the fuller's field. The field commander called for the king, and Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, the palace administrator, went out to him together with Shebna the secretary and Joah son of Asaph the recorder. The field commander said to them, Give Hezekiah this message from the great king of Assyria. How can you be so confident? You thought that words are as good as wisdom and replace strength in time of war. On whom are you relying that you rebel against me? You rely on Egypt, a broken staff which pierces the palm of him who leans on it. Such is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, for all who rely on him. Yes, you may say to me, we rely on Yahweh our God. But isn't He the one whose altars and high places Hezekiah removed when he commanded Judah and Jerusalem, "You shall worship before this altar"? Come now, make a bargain with my master the king. I will give you 2,000 horses if you are able to supply riders. How could you ever repulse one of the least of my master's generals? And you rely on Egypt for chariots and horsemen. Do you think that I have come to attack and destroy this land without consulting Yahweh? He himself said to me, "Go up to this land and conquer it." Then Eliakim and Shebna and Joah said to the field commander, "Speak to your servants in Aramaic. We understand it. Do not speak to us in Hebrew in the hearing of these people on the walls." But the field commander said, "Do you think that my master sent me to speak these words only to your master and to you? Is it not also to the men on the walls who, with you, will have to eat their own dung and drink their own urine?" Then the field commander stood and cried out with a loud voice in Hebrew, "Hear the words of the great king of Assyria. Do not let Hezekiah deceive you. No, he will not be able to help you. Do not listen to him when he tells you to trust in Yahweh, saying, 'Yahweh will save us.' This city will not be given over to the king of Assyria. Do not listen to Hezekiah, but to what the king of Assyria says. Make your peace with me and surrender. Then I will let each of you eat of your wine and of your fig tree, and drink the water of your cistern until I come again. Then I will take you to a land like your own land, a land of grain and new wine, of bread and vineyards, of oil and honey, that you may live and not die." Hezekiah is misleading you when he says that Yahweh will save you. Have the gods of the nations rescued their land from the hands of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim, Hena and Ivvah? And have the gods delivered Samaria from my hand? Who among all the gods of these nations has been able to save this country from me? Do you think that Yahweh will deliver Jerusalem from my hand? The people were like deaf and remained silent, since the king had commanded them not to answer him. Then Eliakim with Sheba and Joah came to Hezekiah with their clothes torn and told him what the field commander had said. 2 Kings chapter 19. When King Hezekiah heard this, he tore his clothes, covered himself with sackcloth, and went to the house of Yahweh. He sent Eliakim, the overseer of the palace, Shebna the secretary, and the elders among the priests, all wearing sackcloth, to the prophet Isaiah son of Amos. And they said to Isaiah, "This is what Hezekiah says. Today is a day of distress, rebuke, and disgrace, as when children are at the point of birth, and there is no strength to deliver them. Would that your God might hear the words of the field commander, whom his master, the king of Assyria, has sent. May Yahweh your God rebuke him for the words he said, insulting the living God. Therefore, offer a prayer for the few of us that are left." When King Hezekiah's officials came to Isaiah, he said to them, "Tell your master this word of Yahweh. Do not fear because of the words you have heard, with which the servants of the king of Assyria have insulted me. Listen, I will let him be frightened. Then he will return to his country, and there I will have him slain by the sword. The field commander returned and found the king of Assyria fighting against Libnah, for he had heard that the king had left Lachish. This was because King Sennacherib had heard that Tirhaka, the Cushite king of Egypt, was going out to fight him. Again, Sennacherib sent messengers to Hezekiah with these words, "Say to Hezekiah, king of Judah, that his God, in whom he trusts, may be deceiving him in saying that Jerusalem will not be given into the hands of the king of Assyria. Surely you have heard what the kings of Assyria have done to all the lands they have destroyed. And will you be spared? Have their gods saved the nations that my fathers destroyed? Goshen and Haran, Rezeph and the sons of Eden, who were in Telassar. Where is the king of Hamath, the king of Arpad, the kings of the city of Sepharvaim, of Hena and Ivah?" Hezekiah took the letter from the messengers, and when he had read it, he went to the house of Yahweh, where he unrolled the letter and prayed, saying, "O Yahweh, God of hosts and God of Israel, enthroned above the cherubim, you alone are God over all the kingdoms of the earth. You have made the heavens and the earth. Give ear, Yahweh, and hear. Open your eyes and see. Listen to all the words of Sennacherib, who has sent men to insult the living God. It is true, Yahweh, that the kings of Assyria have laid waste all the countries of the earth. They have thrown their gods into the fire and destroyed them, for they were not true gods, but gods made of wood and stone by human hands. Now, O Yahweh our God, save us from his hand, and let all the kingdoms of the earth know that you alone, Yahweh, are God." Then Isaiah, son of Amos, sent word to Hezekiah, "You have called upon Yahweh, and he has heard your prayer regarding Sennacherib, king of Assyria. This is what Yahweh has spoken against him. The virgin daughter of Zion despises and scorns you. The daughter of Jerusalem shakes her head behind you. Whom have you insulted and blasphemed? Against whom have you raised your voice and lifted up your eyes in arrogance? Against the Holy One of Israel. Through your servants you have insulted Yahweh. For you have said, with the enormous number of my chariots, I have ascended the heights of the mountains, the topmost recesses of Lebanon. I have cut down its tallest cedars and its choicest fir trees. I have climbed its remotest heights to the densest of its forests. I have dug wells and drunk waters. I have dried up with the soles of my feet all the streams of Egypt. Have you not heard how I decreed it long ago? How I planned from days of old? What now I have brought to pass? Your ordained role was to lay waste fortified cities, to turn them into ruinous heaps. Shorn of power, their inhabitants have been dismayed and confounded. They have been as the grass and green plants in the field, as the grass on the housetops, scorched before it was grown. I know whenever you rise or sit, whenever you go out or come in, and I know your rage against me. Because of your rage against me and your arrogance that I have heard of, I will put my hook in your nose and my bridle in your mouth, and I will turn you back on the way by which you came. This will be a sign for you, O Hezekiah. This year you will eat the aftergrowth grain, and next year what grows from that. But in the third year sow and reap, plant vines and eat the fruit. A remnant of the house of Judah shall take root below and produce fruit above. For a remnant will come from Jerusalem and survivors from Mount Zion. The zeal of Yahweh of hosts will accomplish this. That is why Yahweh has said this concerning the king of Assyria: He shall not enter this city, nor shoot his arrows. He shall not raise a shield to oppose it, nor build a siege ramp against it. He shall leave by the way he came, and he shall not enter the city. Word of Yahweh: I will protect this city, and so save it for my own sake, and for the sake of David my servant. It happened that the angel of Yahweh went out that night and struck 185,000 men in the Assyrian camp. When the people rose early next morning, there were all the corpses. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed, returned home, and lived in Nineveh. While he was worshipping in the temple of his god Nisroch, his sons Adramelech and Sharezer slew him with the sword, and then escaped to the land of Ararat, and Esarhaddon his son succeeded him as king. 2 Kings chapter 20. In those days Hezekiah fell mortally ill, and the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos, went to him with a message from Yahweh: Put your house in order, for you shall die, you shall not live. Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and prayed to Yahweh: Ah, Yahweh, remember how I have walked before you in truth and wholeheartedly, and have done what is good in your sight. And Hezekiah wept bitterly. Isaiah had still not reached the central courtyard when the word of Yahweh came to him: Go back and tell Hezekiah, the ruler of my people, what Yahweh, the God of his father David, says: I have heard your prayer, and I have seen your tears, and now I will cure you. On the third day you will go up to the house of Yahweh. See, I am adding 15 years to your life, and I will save you and the city from the power of the king of Assyria. I will defend it for my sake and for the sake of David my servant. Hezekiah said to Isaiah: What shall be the sign that Yahweh will heal me, and that I shall go up to the house of Yahweh within 3 days? Isaiah answered: This shall be the sign for you in Yahweh's name, that Yahweh shall do what he has said. Do you wish the shadow of the second story to go forward 10 steps or to go back? Hezekiah said, It is easy for the shadow to lengthen 10 steps, but it shall be wonderful if the shadow goes back 10 steps. The prophet Isaiah called on Yahweh, and Yahweh made the shadow go back 10 steps, line by line, on the 10 steps it had covered on the stairway. Isaiah then said, Bring a fig cake to rub on the ulcer, and let Hezekiah be cured. At that time, Merodach-Baladan, son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent letters and a gift to Hezekiah after hearing that he was recovering from an illness. Hezekiah rejoiced, so he showed the envoys his treasure house, the silver, the gold, the spices, the fragrant oils, his weapons, and all that was in the treasury. There was nothing in this place or in all he possessed that Hezekiah did not show. Then the prophet Isaiah went to the king and said, "What did these men say? Where did they come from?" The king answered, "They have come from a far country, from Babylon." Isaiah said, "And what have they seen in your house?" The king answered, "They have seen all that is in my house. There is nothing in my treasuries that I did not show them." So Isaiah said to the king, "Listen to this word of Yahweh. The days are coming when all that is in your house and all that your fathers have stored up to this day shall be taken to Babylon. Nothing shall be left, says Yahweh. Some of your own sons who are born of your blood shall be taken away, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon." Hezekiah answered Isaiah, "What you say is a good word from Yahweh." For he thought, "What does it matter, just so I have peace and security in my own lifetime?" Now the rest regarding Hezekiah and all about his bravery, how he built the great reservoir and how it supplied water to the city, is written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. When Hezekiah slept with his fathers, his son Manasseh reigned in his place. 2 Kings chapter 21. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began his reign, and he reigned for 55 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hephzibah. He treated Yahweh very badly, imitating the wretched practices of the people Yahweh had driven out from the land in order to give it to the Israelites. He rebuilt the sanctuaries on the hills, which had been destroyed by Hezekiah his father. He built altars to the god Baal and made a sacred pillar similar to the one Ahab, king of Israel, had made. He knelt before all the stars of heaven and worshipped them. He built altars in the courtyard of the house of Yahweh, about which Yahweh had said, "Jerusalem shall be the dwelling place of my name." He built altars for all the stars of heaven in the 2 courtyards of the house of Yahweh. He sacrificed his son by fire. He practiced soothsaying and magic. He brought in seers and wizards, doing without ceasing what Yahweh condemned, and thus provoking his anger. He even put up a sacred pillar of the goddess Asherah in the house of Yahweh, in spite of what Yahweh had said to David and to his son Solomon, "I shall let my name rest forever in this house, for I have chosen Jerusalem from among all the tribes of Israel. I shall no longer let Israel wander out of the land I gave to their fathers, provided that you try to live according to all the law I gave you through my servant Moses." But they did not listen, and Manasseh led them into doing things worse than those nations had done, whom Yahweh had expelled before the Israelites. So Yahweh spoke through the mouth of his servants the prophets, saying, "Manasseh, king of Judah, has multiplied the wretched practices and has acted worse than the Amorites. He has made the people of Judah sin with his repugnant images. Therefore, I shall bring upon Jerusalem and upon Judah an evil so great that the ears of those who hear of it shall burst. Jerusalem and its kings shall suffer the fate of Samaria and of the family of Ahab. I will wipe Jerusalem as one wipes a plate to clean it, and then turns it upside down. I shall drive away the rest of my people and give them over to the hands of their enemies, so that they shall become their prey and booty. For they did what displeased me and made me angry from the day when their ancestors came out of Egypt to this day. Manasseh also shed innocent blood in such quantity that it filled up Jerusalem from one end to the other. Besides the sins which he made Judah commit, doing what is wrong in the sight of Yahweh. The rest regarding Manasseh, all that he did, and the sins he committed, is written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. When Manasseh died, they buried him in the garden of his house, in the garden of Uzzah, and his son Amon reigned in his place. Amon was 22 years old when he began his reign, and he reigned for 2 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Meshullemeth, daughter of Harus of the city of Jothah. He treated Yahweh badly, as his father Manasseh had done. He completely followed in the footsteps of his father. He served the idols his father had served and bowed down before them. He abandoned Yahweh, the God of his ancestors, and did not walk in the way of Yahweh. The officials of Ammon conspired against him and murdered him in his house. But the citizens killed all who had plotted against the king, and they proclaimed his son Josiah king in his place. The rest regarding Ammon and all that he did is written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. They buried him in his tomb in the garden of Uzzah, and his son Josiah reigned in his place. 2 Kings chapter 22. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to govern, and he reigned for 31 years in Jerusalem. His mother was Jedidah, daughter of Adaiah of Bozkath. He did everything that was right in the eyes of Yahweh, and followed in the footsteps of David his father, without turning aside either to the right or to the left. In the 18th year of his reign, King Josiah sent his secretary Shaphan, son of Asaliah, son of Meshullam, to the house of Yahweh, saying, "Go up to the high priest Hilkiah, and give him the amount of money which the people offer for the house of Yahweh, and that which the gatekeepers have collected. And when these have been smelted down, let them turn it over to those in charge of the house of Yahweh. It shall be given to those carpenters and construction workers who do the repairs of the house. In the same way, they shall buy the wood and stones needed for the repair of the house. But do not ask from them any account of the money, for they are honorable men." At that moment, Hilkiah the high priest said to Shaphan the secretary, "I have found the book of the law in the house of Yahweh." And he entrusted the book to Shaphan, who read it. Then Shaphan went to the king and said, "We have gathered the money in the house, and this has been turned over to the caretakers of the house to make the repairs." And Shaphan added, "The priest Hilkiah has turned over a book to me." And Shaphan read the book to the king. When the king heard the contents of the book, he tore his clothes and commanded Hilkiah, Ahikam, Akbor, the secretary of Shaphan, and Asaiah his minister, to do the following: "Go and consult Yahweh about the threats in this book which you have found. Consult him for me, for the people, and for the whole of Judah, since our fathers did not listen to what this book says, nor to its ordinances. This is why the anger of Yahweh is ready to burn against us." The priest Hilkiah, Ahikam, Akbor, Shaphan, and Asaiah went to consult the prophetess Huldah, wife of Shallum, son of Tikhiah, son of Harhas, keeper of the wardrobe. She lived in Jerusalem in the new city. She answered them, "You will say to the one who sent you to me, 'This is what Yahweh says, I shall bring evil upon this place and upon its inhabitants, according to all the words of the book which the king of Judah has read. For this people have abandoned me, and they have burned incense in honor of other gods. Because of all they have done, I am angry about this place, and the fire of my anger will not be quenched. You shall deliver this answer to the king of Judah, who has sent you to consult Yahweh. Yahweh, the God of Israel, says this: The warnings in this book shall not reach you, for your heart has been touched, and you have done penance in the presence of Yahweh when you heard what I have said against this place and its inhabitants, that this place shall be desolate and cursed. You have torn your garments and went before me, and I have heard you, says Yahweh. Therefore you shall join your fathers. You shall die and be buried in peace, without seeing any of the evils I shall send against this place. 2 Kings chapter 23. The king summoned to his side all the leaders of Judah and Jerusalem. Then he went up to the house of Yahweh, followed by all the people of Judah and Jerusalem. The priests with the prophets and all the people went with him, from the youngest to the oldest. When all were gathered, he read to them the book of the law found in the house of Yahweh. The king stood by the pillar. He made a covenant in the presence of Yahweh, promising to follow him, to keep his commandments and laws, and to respect his ordinances. He promised to keep this covenant according to what was written in the book, with all his heart and with all his soul. And all the people promised with him. Then the king commanded the high priest Hilkiah, as well as the priests of lesser rank, and all the gatekeepers, to bring out all the objects which had been made for Baal, Asherah, and for all the stars of heaven. He had them burned outside Jerusalem in the idol land of Kidron, and had their ashes brought to Bethel. The kings of Judah had appointed pagan priests who offered sacrifices in the sanctuaries on the hills, in the different cities of Judah and in the suburbs of Jerusalem. Josiah did away with them, and with those who offered incense to Baal, to the sun, the moon, the stars, and all the heavenly host. The sacred pillar that was in the house of Yahweh was brought out of Jerusalem and was taken to the brook Kidron, where it was burned and its ashes thrown on the public grave. The king demolished the house of the effeminate men who dedicated themselves to prostitution, as was done in the cult of Asherah. This was within the courtyards of the house of Yahweh, and in this house too the women wore veils for Asheroth. Right after this, he made all the priests from the city of Judah come to Jerusalem, and he destroyed all the sanctuaries on the hills where they had offered sacrifice, from Beersheba in the south to Geba in the north. He destroyed the sanctuary of the gates that was at the entrance of the gate of Joshua, the city governor. It was on the left side of the entrance gate to the city. The priests who had served in the sanctuaries on the hills could not offer sacrifices in the house of Yahweh. They only ate the unleavened bread with the priests of Jerusalem. The king had the place for burning human sacrifices in the valley of Ben Hinnom destroyed, so that no one could sacrifice his sons or daughters in the fire according to the ritual of Molech. The horses which the kings of Judah had dedicated to the sun were removed from the entrance of the house of Yahweh. These were in the atrium near the house of the palace official Nathan-Melech, and the chariots of the sun were burned. There were altars which the kings of Judah had built on the roof of the palace of Ahaz. There were also altars built by Manasseh in the 2 courtyards of the house of Yahweh. Josiah had them all destroyed and reduced to dust, which was thrown into the brook Kidron. The king destroyed the sanctuaries on the hills facing Jerusalem to the south of the Mount of Olives. Solomon, king of Israel, had built them for Ashtoreth, the idol of the Sidonians, for Chemosh, the idol of Moab, and for Milcom, the idol of the Ammonites. The king broke in pieces the images of the false gods, cut down the sacred pillars, and filled the places in which these had been with human bones to make them unclean. There was also the sanctuary of Bethel with the altar which Jeroboam king of Israel had made. This cult had been the sin of Israel. The king destroyed it. He set the sanctuary on fire and burned the sacred pillar. Looking around on all sides, Josiah saw the tombs on the mountains. He had the bones taken out of the tomb and burned on the altar. So the word of Yahweh was fulfilled, which the man of God had proclaimed when Jeroboam was standing by the altar during a feast. Josiah noticed the tomb of this man of God, and he said, "What is the monument that I see?" The people of the city said to him, "That is the tomb of the man of God who came from Judah to announce what you have just done with the altar of Bethel." The king commanded, "Leave the tomb in peace, and let no one touch his bones." And his bones, together with the bones of the prophet of Samaria, were not touched. Josiah also removed all the sanctuaries on the hills in the cities of Samaria. These sanctuaries had been made by the kings of Israel, and they had provoked the anger of Yahweh. The king destroyed them and did to them as he had done to the temple of Bethel. He slaughtered upon the altars all the priests of the sanctuaries on the hills who were found there, and he burned human bones on the altars. Then he returned to Jerusalem. The king gave this order to all the people: "Celebrate the Passover in honor of Yahweh our God, as it is written in this book of the covenant." A Passover like this had not been celebrated since the days of the judges who had governed Israel, or during the time when the kings of Israel and the kings of Judah reigned. This Passover was celebrated in Jerusalem in the 18th year of King Josiah. Josiah obeyed all the words of the law written in the book which the priest Hilkiah had found in the house of Yahweh. He immediately did away with the mediums and seers, the small household gods and the idols, and all those loathsome things seen in the lands of Judah and Jerusalem. There had never before been a king like him who returned to Yahweh with all his heart, with all his soul, and with all his strength, observing all the law of Moses, nor was another like him seen again. In spite of this, Yahweh did not turn from the fire of his anger. He was angry with Judah because of all the evils Manasseh had done. So Yahweh declared, "I shall also cast Judah away from my presence, as I have cast Israel. I shall no longer take Jerusalem into consideration, though it is the city I have chosen. and there is the house of which I have said, my name dwells here. The rest regarding Josiah and all that he did is written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. In those days, Pharaoh Necho crossed the river Euphrates and went to join the king of Ashur. King Josiah set out to confront him, but Necho killed him in Megiddo when he saw him. Josiah's servants brought his body in a chariot from Megiddo to Jerusalem, and they buried him in his tomb. Then the people took Jehoahaz, son of Josiah, to anoint him and make him king in place of his father. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother was Hamutal, daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. He did what displeases Yahweh, imitating his ancestors. The Pharaoh Necho bound Jehoahaz in chains in Riblah, in the land of Hamath, since he did not want him to reign in Jerusalem. Then he imposed on the land a contribution of 100 talents of silver and 10 of gold. And he installed as king another son of Josiah, Eliakim, as the successor to his father, and changed his name to Jehoiakim. But he took Jehoahaz away and brought him to Egypt, where Jehoahaz died. Jehoiakim gave the silver and gold to the Pharaoh to pay the contribution which the Pharaoh himself exacted from him through a tax imposed on all the land. Everyone had to pay his quota according to what he possessed. So Jehoiakim collected from all the people the gold and silver demanded by the Pharaoh. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother was Zebidah, daughter of Pedaiah of Rumah. He did what displeased Yahweh, imitating his fathers. 2 Kings chapter 24. In those days, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, invaded the land, and Jehoiakim became subject to him for 3 years, after which he rebelled. Yahweh then sent against Jehoiakim bands of Chaldeans, Arameans, Moabites, and Ammonites. They raided the land of Judah and destroyed it according to the word Yahweh had spoken through his servants, the prophets. All this happened only because Yahweh had ordered it so. He willed to cast the people far away from his presence because of the sins of Manasseh and all the evils he had done, and also because of the innocent blood he had shed that filled Jerusalem. Because of all this, Yahweh would not pardon them. The rest regarding Jehoiakim and all that he did is written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. When Jehoiakim died, his son Jehoiachin succeeded him. The king of Egypt did not leave his own land again, because the king of Babylon had conquered all that belonged to the king of Egypt, from the river Egypt to the Euphrates river. Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he succeeded his father, and he reigned for 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother was Nehushata, daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. Jehoiachin treated Yahweh badly, as his father had done. At that time, the officials of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to attack Jerusalem, surrounding the city. Nebuchadnezzar came while the city was being besieged by his men. Jehoiachin, king of Judah, surrendered together with his mother, his servants, his leaders, and the palace officials. It was the 8th year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar captured them, and he took away the treasures of the house of Yahweh and of the king's house. He also destroyed all the objects of gold which Solomon king of Israel had made for the sanctuary of Yahweh. So the word Yahweh had spoken was fulfilled. Nebuchadnezzar carried off into exile all the leaders and prominent men, the blacksmiths and locksmiths, all the men of valor fit for war. A total of 10,000 were exiled to Babylon. Only the poorest sector of the population was left. Nebuchadnezzar also carried away Jehoiachin with his mother, his wives, the ministers of the palace, and the prominent men of the land. So all the prominent people, numbering 7,000, the blacksmiths, numbering 1,000, and all the men fit for war, were deported to Babylon by the king of Babylon. He made Mattaniah, Jehoiachin's uncle, king of Jerusalem, in place of Jehoiachin, and he changed his name to Zedekiah. Zedekiah was 21 years old, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 11 years. His mother was Hamutal, daughter of Jeremiah. He did what displeased Yahweh, as Jehoiakim had done. So the punishment of Yahweh fell on Jerusalem and Judah until he cast them far away from his presence. And Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. 2 Kings chapter 25. In the 9th year of Zedekiah's reign, on the 10th day of the 10th month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, marched with his entire army and laid siege to Jerusalem. They camped outside the city and built siege works all around it. The city was under siege up to the 11th year of Zedekiah. On the 9th day of the 4th month, famine became a serious problem in the city, and throughout the land there was no bread for the people. When the city was opened by a breach in the wall, the Judean army fled through the gate between the two walls near the king's garden, while the Chaldeans were still around the city, and they fled towards Arabah. The Chaldeans followed in hot pursuit of King Zedekiah and caught up with him in the plains of Jericho. All his army deserted and scattered. The Chaldeans seized the king and led him away to Riblah in the territory of Hamath, and there the king of Babylon passed sentence on him. There at Riblah the king of Babylon slaughtered the sons of Zedekiah in his presence. He then put out the eyes of Zedekiah, bound him with a double bronze chain, and took him to Babylon. On the 7th day of the 5th month, in the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, Nebuzaradan, commander of the bodyguard and servant of the king of Babylon, entered Jerusalem and set fire to the house of Yahweh and the royal palace as well as to all the houses in Jerusalem. The Chaldean army under the commander of the bodyguard completely demolished all the walls around Jerusalem. Nebuzaradan, commander of the bodyguard, carried off into exile the last of the Jews left in the city, those who had deserted to the king of Babylon and the remainder of the artisans. But he left those among the very poor who were capable of working in vineyards and cultivating the soil. The Chaldeans broke into pieces the bronze pillars, the stands, and the bronze sea in the house of Yahweh, and carried off all this bronze to Babylon. They also took the pots, shovels, wick trimmers, the spoons, and all the bronze articles used in the temple service. The commander of the bodyguard took the basins, censers, sprinkling bowls, pots, lampstands, ladles, and bowls, all that was made of gold or silver. The 2 pillars, the sea, the movable stands which King Solomon had made for the house of Yahweh, all this bronze was of immeasurable weight. The pillars were each 18 cubits high. Each had a thickness of 4 fingers and was hollow. On top of each pillar was a bronze capital 5 cubits high, and above and around the capital there was a filigree work with pomegranates made of bronze. The commander of the bodyguard took captive Seraiah the chief priest and Zephaniah the next priest in rank, as well as 3 doorkeepers. He also took from those in the city a eunuch in command of the fighting men, 5 personal advisers to the king who were discovered in the city, the commander's secretary responsible for military conscription, and 60 of his men who were found in the city. Nebuzaradan took all these away to the king of Babylon at Riblah. There at Riblah in the territory of Hamath, the king of Babylon had them put to death. So Judah was taken away captive from its own land. As for the remnant of the people whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had left behind, he appointed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, as their governor. When the commanders of the troops and their men heard that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah as governor, they went to him at Mizpah. These were Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, Johanan, son of Kareah, Seraiah, son of Tahumeth, from Natophah, Jasaniah the Makkathite, with their men. Gedaliah told them and their men most solemnly, "Do not be afraid of submitting yourselves to the Chaldeans. Live in the country, obeying the king of Babylon, and all will be well with you." In the 17th month, however, Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, son of Elishama, who belonged to the king's family, came with 10 of his men and killed Gedaliah, as well as the Judeans and the Chaldeans who were with him at Mizpah. Then all the people, from the greatest to the least, set out with the commanders of the troops and took refuge in Egypt in fear of the Chaldeans. On the 27th day of the 12th month, in the 37th year of the exile, Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Evil-Merodach, king of Babylon, in the year he came to the throne, pardoned Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and released him from prison. He spoke kindly to him and gave him more honorable treatment than the other kings who were with him in Babylon. Jehoiakim put aside his prison garment and for the rest of his life ate at the king's table. Day by day, for as long as he lived, he was maintained by the king of Babylon.